You wake up one morning, stretch a little, check your phone. Your back doesn't hurt. Your head feels clear. You slept okay. Maybe not great, but okay. You get dressed, make coffee, go about your day. Nothing dramatic happens. Nothing breaks. By most measures, you feel fine. And for a long time, that becomes the standard. Fine is enough. Fine means everything's working. Fine means you don't need to change anything. But here's what's confusing about that. Years pass and you still feel fine most days. Then one afternoon, you bend down to pick something up and your back seizes in a way it never has before. Or you notice you can't recover from a late night the way you used to. Or you realize you've been tired for months, but you've been calling it normal. And you start to wonder, when did this actually start? That's the part that doesn't make sense at first. Because you felt fine right up until you didn't. I've been paying attention to this pattern for a while now. Not because I have some special insight, but because I kept hearing the same story from people in their 40s, 50s, 60s. They'd say some version of, I thought I was doing okay, and then suddenly I wasn't. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized it's not sudden. It just feels that way. So I started asking a different question. Not what went wrong, but what were we missing while everything felt fine? Most people believe that feeling fine means you're fine, that your body will tell you when something's wrong, that pain, fatigue, stiffness, those are the signals. And if you're not getting those signals, you're good. You're healthy enough. You're holding steady. And honestly, that makes sense. It's how we've been taught to think. You go to the doctor when something hurts. You rest when you're exhausted. You adjust when you notice a problem. Feeling fine is the goal. It means you're managing.
But here's what actually tends to happen. Your body doesn't wait for you to feel bad to start changing. It adapts quietly. It compensates. It shifts load from one system to another. It borrows from tomorrow to get through today. And for a long time, it does this so smoothly that you don't notice. You just keep feeling fine until the margin runs out. Let me zoom out for a second, because this plays out over years, not days. When you're younger, say in your 20s or early 30s, your body has a lot of buffer. You can sleep poorly for a week and bounce back. You can sit in a bad position for hours and not feel it the next day. You can eat irregularly, skip exercise, stay up late, and your body just absorbs it. Not because you're invincible, but because you have capacity, extra reserves, room for error. And during that time, you feel fine because you are fine. Your body is handling it. But what most people don't realize is that this capacity isn't static. It's not locked in. Over time, it gets used up. Not all at once, not in an obvious way, but slowly, in the background, while you're still feeling fine. Here's how it works. Let's say you sit at a desk most days. Your posture isn't terrible, but it's not perfect either. You lean forward a little. Your shoulders round slightly. Your hip flexors stay shortened for hours. None of this hurts. You feel fine. But over months and years, your body adapts to that position. The muscles that should be holding you upright start to weaken because they're not being used. The muscles in the front of your body tighten because they're constantly engaged. Your spine starts to curve just a little more. Your range of motion decreases, but so gradually that you don't notice it happening. You still feel fine because nothing hurts. Your body has compensated. It's redistributed the load. It's found a way to keep you functional without sending pain signals. But here's the thing. That compensation has a cost. Your body is now working harder to do basic things. It's using stabilizer muscles that weren't meant to carry that load long term. It's putting extra pressure on joints that are slightly out of alignment. And because it's happening slowly, you don't feel it. You just feel fine. Then, one day, you bend down to tie your shoe, and something in your lower back spasms. And it feels sudden, like it came out of nowhere. But it didn't. It's been building for years.
You just didn't have the signal until the buffer ran out. The same thing happens with energy. Let's say you're not sleeping great. Not terrible, just not deep, not restorative. Maybe you wake up once or twice a night. Maybe you're in bed for 7 hours, but only actually sleeping 5.5. You get up, you function, you drink coffee, you push through the afternoon slump. You feel fine. Your body compensates for that too. It releases more cortisol to keep you alert. It dips into glucose reserves more aggressively. It reduces the intensity of some background repair processes to save energy for the stuff you need to do during the day. And because your body is good at compensating, you don't feel the loss. You just feel fine. Maybe a little more tired than you used to be, but fine. Over time, though, that adds up. Your cells aren't repairing as efficiently. Your immune system isn't as sharp. Your ability to regulate blood sugar gets a little less precise. Your mood becomes a little more reactive. None of these things show up as a clear symptom. They just quietly reduce your margin. And for a while, you don't notice. Because you're still getting through the day. You're still functional. You still feel fine. But then you get a cold that lingers for 3 weeks instead of 1. Or you notice you're more irritable than you used to be. Or you realize you haven't felt truly rested in months. And you start to wonder if something's wrong. But when you look back, there's no clear moment when it started. Because it's been accumulating the whole time. You just didn't feel it until the buffer was gone. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine you have a savings account. Every month, a little bit gets withdrawn. Not much, just a small amount. And because you started with a decent balance, it doesn't seem like a problem. The account still has money in it. You're fine. But you're not depositing anything new. You're just spending down what's already there. And because the withdrawals are small, you don't check the balance very often. You just assume it's fine. Then one day, you go to make a withdrawal and the account is empty. And it feels sudden, like it just happened. But it didn't. It's been draining the whole time. You just weren't checking. That's what happens when you feel fine for too long without paying attention to the underlying systems. You're spending down your reserves, your flexibility, your recovery capacity, your resilience. And because you're not feeling the cost in the moment, you assume it's not happening. But it is happening, quietly, while you feel fine. So what actually tends to help over time is learning to pay attention before the buffer runs out. And that doesn't mean obsessing over every little thing. It doesn't mean treating your body like it's fragile. It just means recognizing that feeling fine isn't the same thing as building margin. It's not the same thing as maintaining capacity. What many people find useful is checking in on the things that don't send obvious signals, like how well you're actually sleeping. Not just how many hours you're in bed, but how you feel when you wake up, whether you're waking up during the night, whether you feel restored or just functional. Because your body will let you function on poor sleep for a long time. But it won't tell you what it's costing until later, or how your body moves. Not just whether anything hurts, but whether you're maintaining range of motion, whether you can still sit on the floor and get back up without using your hands, whether your balance feels as stable as it used to. Because your body will compensate for stiffness and weakness for years. But eventually, the compensation runs out. Or how your energy patterns work. Not just whether you have enough energy to get through the day, but whether you're relying on caffeine or sugar to do it. Whether you crash in the afternoon. Whether you feel recovered after a weekend. Because your body will keep you moving, even when your reserves are low. But it can't do that forever without consequence. Doctors often point out that the conditions that show up in middle age and beyond, stiffness, poor recovery, metabolic issues, chronic fatigue, they don't start when you notice them. They start years earlier, while you still feel fine. And in general, this is why paying attention before something breaks tends to work better than waiting for a signal. Because by the time the signal shows up, you're not catching it early. You're catching it late, after the margin is gone. That doesn't mean you need to overhaul everything.
It doesn't mean panicking or assuming something's wrong. It just means recognizing that feeling fine isn't the finish line. It's the baseline. And maintaining that baseline over time requires more than just waiting to see if anything hurts. It requires checking in, adjusting, building some buffer back in. Not because something's broken, but because you want to keep feeling fine for as long as possible. Because here's the hidden cost that most people don't see until later. When you spend years feeling fine without maintaining the systems underneath, you don't just lose capacity, you lose options. You lose the ability to recover quickly. You lose flexibility, not just in your body, but in how you can respond to stress, illness, injury. You lose resilience. And once that's gone, it's much harder to get back than it was to maintain in the first place. That's not meant to sound scary. It's just what tends to happen over time when we assume that feeling fine means everything's fine. So if you're in your 40s, 50s, or beyond, and you feel fine most days, that's good. That's the goal. But it's worth asking, am I just feeling fine? Or am I actually maintaining the systems that let me feel fine? Am I building margin, or am I spending it down without noticing? Because the difference between those two things doesn't show up today. It shows up 5, 10, 15 years from now. And by then, it's not a matter of catching something early. It's a matter of managing something that's already been quietly building. The people who seem to age well, who stay mobile, resilient, and functional into their 60s, 70s, and beyond, they're not necessarily doing anything extreme. They're just not waiting until something breaks to start paying attention. They're maintaining the buffer. They're checking in on the quiet things. They're treating feeling fine as the starting point, not the end point. And that's the shift that tends to make the biggest difference over time. Not doing more, not doing everything perfectly, just recognizing that your body doesn't always tell you when something's slipping. It compensates. It adapts. It keeps you feeling fine for as long as it can, until it can't. So the question isn't whether you feel fine right now. The question is, what are the systems underneath that feeling? And are you maintaining them or just assuming they'll hold? Because they will hold for a while. And then, quietly, they won't. And by the time you notice, the margin is already gone. If this helped you see things a little differently, consider subscribing. I'll keep explaining the quiet patterns that tend to matter over time.